Do you like it when a hitter is improving in one underlying skill? How about when he's improving in two? How about, well, maybe we should get a little bit less greedy here, but how about if he's improving in three areas at once? We'll talk about a handful of those players with Ryan Bloomfield right after this on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by Vivid Seats. Erik Halterman here, joined by Ryan Bloomfield of Baseball HQ and the Bubba and the Bloom podcast. And Ryan, pop quiz for you. What month is it?
It is May. It is
Wow.
May. Happy to ring in May Day with you today, Erik. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are officially into the second, or I guess technically third month of the regular season, if we're going to count March as a whole month. I know we don't for fantasy stats purposes, but it feels meaningful. I don't know about you, but it feels meaningful to look at the calendar and say, okay, it's May 1st now. It's not just April 30th. These stats mean something.
Well, yeah, I'd argue depending on how your team's doing. If your team's doing bad, it's early. Things can change.
True.
If your team's doing good, you know this is a full sample. I'm the best fantasy player out there, so it all depends. It goes team by team basis.
That is very, very true. Well, we are going to take a look at some players who have shown some promising underlying stats through the first month plus. And we're going to take a look at some hitters today on two different levels. We'll look at their exit velocity, some of their swing decisions, and their ability to make contact. And then we'll also look at some of the newer bat tracking stats. And we'll try to figure out which group we're learning more from. We'll get to all of that in about 15 minutes. But first, we've got a whole bunch of headlines that I want to speed through, starting with a whole bunch of notable starts yesterday, including Noah Cameron of the Royals made his major league debut, was excellent, and then was optioned all in one day. Cameron ended up going 6 1/3 scoreless innings, allowed just one hit against the Rays, carried a no-hitter pretty deep into that one, and then only struck out 3, walked 5. So it's not all positive, and he was optioned on Thursday. So that means, though, that since he was called up and sent back down, there are some leagues where you have the opportunity to stash him, say in NFBC, where you might not otherwise. Is it worth doing so with Noah Cameron, or is there not enough here that we need to stash?
It's interesting. It's kind of that. It was almost kind of the Bowden Francis type of near no hitter, where you look at the strikeout and the walk numbers, like you just said, Erik. And I mean, that's what I'm typically looking at if I'm judging a pitcher start. It's not really how many hits, runs, even. It's what was that K to walk. And so, who knows? I mean, it's the first debut for Noah Cameron. So 5 walks, I'm sure, had some jitters, but very impressive that he did that. And I think the biggest thing is this was a sign that Noah Cameron is basically from a playing time standpoint, the 6th starter for the Royals right now. And what I always kind of say with 6 starters, at some point, probably pretty soon, somebody in that rotation will get hurt, and Noah Cameron is then kind of that first plan B. So really good skills. Last season, one of the better strikeout to walk rates and swinging strike and ball percentage metrics among kind of the upper minors, guys who are set to debut in 2025. So I like that. Took Noah Cameron a few draft and holds this offseason. So I don't know, like in NFBC formats, if he's stash worthy quite yet, just because we don't know when Noah Cameron will be back. And this is not like a Bubba Chandler type of instant impact potential. So I would probably, and you probably already have other injured guys on your teams on these non-IL leagues, I'd probably hold off or just put like a very conditional bid on Noah Cameron. And unless we get news that he's coming back up at some point, then of course, right, you'd be more aggressive.
I think that sounds right to me. So a name to know for sure, Noah Cameron, but not necessarily one to make a priority until he returns. Other notable starts yesterday. How about Christopher Sanchez? He got through 5 pretty good innings against the Nationals, allowed 2 runs on 5 hits, struck out 6, did walk a season high 3. But if you were not paying attention to any of the news this past week and just saw Christopher Sanchez's box score, you wouldn't think anything of it, which is great. Because his last start, he left after 2 innings with forearm soreness, and we know by now to be pretty scared of that one. how much has your worry dropped about Christopher Sanchez after just one pretty normal start?
I'd say it probably dropped from like a 7 out of 10 worry to maybe 4 or 5. I don't think Christopher Sanchez is completely out of the woods, but definitely a great sign, that he made the start. I have Christopher Sanchez on a bunch of teams and benched him pretty much anywhere that I could because I was just
Yeah, I
scared
did the
of
same.
what could happen. Yeah, but yeah, the worry level is still there. It just it drops slightly. The career high, or the, I guess, season high walks at 3, like you said, that's not too bad. The velocity was there, which I'm looking at. He was missing bats, so Christopher Sanchez looked like the normal kind of Christopher Sanchez, like you're alluding to. So if we don't hear any other news or whatever about Christopher Sanchez heading into his next start, which could be a 2-step if he pitched on Wednesday this week, I think you go get Christopher Sanchez back in your lineups and hope for the best.
Yeah, I am right there with you. Would not count him as out of the woods until we get to November. I'm probably going to be worrying all year, but you know what? I'm
Yeah.
going to be starting him anyway. So fingers crossed. We had a couple more notable starts yesterday. A couple season debuts for some guys who were coming off of elbow surgery plus. I think that's accurate for both of these guys. Tony Gonsolin, who missed time with Tommy John surgery, missed a full year, and then missed the start of this year with back issues. And then Lucas Giolito, who missed all of last year with an internal brace, and then the start of this year with a hamstring strain. Well, both of them had good debuts. For Giolito, struck out 7, walked 2, allowed 3 runs on 5 hits in 6 innings against the Blue Jays. For Gonsolin, it was 9 strikeouts, allowed 3 runs on 6 hits over 6 innings against the Marlins. So pretty encouraging for both of those guys in leagues where both of them might be out there on the wire. How would you rank those two for your order of preference this weekend?
I would rank them Gonsolin and then Giolito. I just think the Dodger factor, which can work both ways. All of the Dodgers pitchers are injured right now, but that means Tony Gonsolin has a spot for the foreseeable future. And if Gonsolin can go, he went 77 pitches, 6 innings. If he can do that on a regular basis, we're not expecting 9 Ks, no walks every single time out. But if Tony Gonsolin can go 5-6 innings on that team, I think your win potential is just that much higher. So an edge to Tony Gonsolin, but also we'll be bidding on Giolito. The biggest thing I'm looking for with these two guys is, and this is kind of the Jason Collette-ism, is, what does the command look like coming off of these elbow surgeries and the long layoff? And at least in a sample size of 1 start, no walks for Gonsolin, and just a couple for Giolito. So I like both. I will be prioritizing Gonsolin over Giolito this weekend.
Sounds good. Yeah, good to see that control from Giolito, especially because in his rehab outings, he'd been pretty shaky. 6 walks in his final tune-up start. I was expecting pretty bad things for his major league debut this year. Did not happen, so that's good news. Elsewhere in the headlines, we have Mike Trout leaving with an injury. This is not a good one. We've seen this before. In this case, left knee soreness. Just day-to-day for now. I mean, I don't even know what the fantasy analysis is here. This is what you signed up for. He made it till late April, and we'll find out over the next day or two if this is the bad one or just a couple days, right?
Yeah, at least until the next one comes at some point, and we just we deal with it then. But I mean, this is what everyone signed up for, right? With Mike Trout, I don't think anybody was expecting a full season of health from our guy. Almost made it through April, Eric. Almost. He couldn't quite get through the whole month without at least a scare. But it's just another reminder that at any time, Mike Trout could go belly up. Which again, we all know that. Unfortunately, it kind of has derailed the second half of Trout's career, which is a little bit of a shame. But that's what we have.
Yeah, as mentioned by Uncle Ted in the chat here, Gustavo Campero is the next outfielder up on the depth chart. Any insight on Gustavo Campero other than a pretty good name here? He's somebody we should be adding because Trout's about to miss time?
Was just gonna say that's the ultimate Uncle Ted name to throw out there, Gustavo Campero. I'm not super. It sounds like Trout. It sounds like this is minor, so probably just a name to tuck away. Uncle Ted, tuck away until we have a longer absence there, my friend.
Yeah, Campero, a 27-year-old who just debuted last year, has 14 major league games to his name, a 635 OPS. We'll see if there's an opportunity. He does have 4 steals in those 14 games, but I don't think I'm adding him outside of a deep AL only until we actually see how much time Trout is missing, if any. Elsewhere in the news, we got some bits of closer news for the Diamondbacks. We already had AJ Puck being placed on the IL. 60 day. In fact, he's not throwing for 2 weeks, but he has at least avoided surgery for now, which is a better outcome than maybe we could have expected with his left flexor strain. But on the same team, Justin Martinez has hit the IL with shoulder inflammation. This is a story that had been building over the last couple days. Martinez showing reduced velocity. There was some thought that this could lead to an IL stint, and it has.
Yep.
So who are we picking up this weekend to save games in Arizona?
Oh, man. Closer madness continues for another Fab week. This past Fab week was pretty nuts with the likes of Will Vest, Camilo Doval, Slayton, et cetera. It's tough. I think it's for Arizona. It's either I would go Shelby Miller or Kevin Ginkel. Even though Ryan Thompson got the save on Wednesday, 21 pitch save on Wednesday, Ginkel has been the guy before. If we remember when Paul Sewald was injured, I believe that was last season, to start last season, Ginkel stepped in and was the guy for some time in Arizona. So that's why I lean Kevin Ginkel. Now that depends. I mean, Kevin Ginkel just made his season debut in the majors. He's been hurt, and just got off of his rehab assignment. So does Arizona want to put Ginkel directly into that 9th inning? That's the only kind of hesitant there. But Shelby Miller has pitched extremely well this season. I forgot Shelby Miller was even back on the Arizona Diamondbacks entering the season, but has not given up a run in 12 2/3. So I think it's either one of those two. Luckily for Fab, we have 3 more games to maybe get some clues as to what Torey Lovullo is going to do out there in the desert.
Yeah, I'm remembering Ryan Thompson last year, right after Paul Sewald was removed from the job. Thompson got the first save, confused us all, got another one a few days later, and then didn't get any more the rest of the year. So I could see something similar happening there. I think I'm with you on preferring Miller and Ginkel and hoping that we'll get a little bit more clarity before Sunday night. Elsewhere in closer news, we have Alexis Diaz being optioned again by the Reds. I guess is this even closer news? He hadn't been reinserted in the 9th inning. So technically this changes nothing for the Reds. And it confirms that you probably should have dropped Alexis Diaz a long time ago, and confirms that I guess Emilio Pagan is just safe. Is that how you're reading this?
I think so. I think if you still have Alexis Diaz, you can smash that drop button, a rage drop. I don't think Alexis Diaz is coming back and making 9th inning waves anytime soon. To me, man, Emilio Pagan is for how good, whatever we think of Emilio Pagan over his career, over recent seasons, he is the guy right now in Cincinnati. I don't see that changing until he falters. Pagan's just had an interesting kind of roller coaster career, 4.50 plus ERAs pretty much every season from 2020 through 22, but then sub 3 ERA in 2023 and a sub 3 ERA this season as well. So the biggest thing is Pagan has the job now, and I don't see that changing unless he struggles or gets injured.
Yeah, and in terms of strikeouts and walks, 28% strikeout rate, 4% walk rate. That's great.
Yep.
He looks like one of the better relievers in baseball. I don't know if I've ever seen a ground ball rate in the teens.
That's yeah, and that's it. That's 17%. A little bit of an issue. That's a little bit of an issue given where Alexis Diaz calls home in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Yeah, although maybe sometimes these guys who are such an extreme are doing something that the models tend to not quite capture, and maybe this is going to work out better than some of the ERA estimators, like, say, XFIP, which will look at just how many fly balls you're giving up and assume you're about to give up a ton of homers. That says he should be at 423. So we'll keep an eye on Emilio Pagan. I don't think either of us is, trusting him, but he's getting the saves now, and the Reds are trusting him enough that I assume he's going to get the next couple. So Emilio Pagan is the guy. We are going to move on to the main topic here. There are more injuries that you can keep on top of over at rotowire.com. You can go to rotowire.com and enter code ROTO15 to get 15% off any RotoWire product. That's a new thing we've got going on this year. But we will get to the main topic of today's show right after this message from Vivid Seats. Ryan, did you know finally baseball is back this MLB season? Knock it out of the park with Vivid Seats and score great tickets to the biggest games of the year. Every fastball, every home run, and every eye-popping play of your favorite team live and in person. Plus, with Vivid Seats rewards, you earn rewards with every single purchase. Just buy 10 tickets, then cash in your credit toward your free 11th ticket. Talk about an easy win, and here's a pro reward tip. When buying tickets for your whole group, split the bill and make progress toward your free 11th ticket even faster. From behind the dugout to the upper deck, Vivid Seats has great tickets for all the 2025 games that matter to you. Just visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Vivid Seats, experience it live. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions. And welcome back, everybody, to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Erik Halterman here with Ryan Bloomfield. And for the rest of the show, I'm going to do my best Ryan Bloomfield impression and show you a bunch of spreadsheets with pretty colors on them. Ryan, are you excited?
It's what I live for, man. It's what I live for. We were saying before the call, like, and you sent me the spreadsheets. I see all these little, the shades of green and red to show bad and good. Like, this is for a fantasy baseball nerd like me, this is nirvana. So thank you with the paying homage to the Bloom boards with the color coding and it looks good. It looks good. The spreadsheet looks solid, man.
I raise my standards once a year when I have you on the show here.
Yeah, so you got the little borders between columns and things. Like you got the details.
My other guests don't get borders. That's just for you. We go all out this week. So what we've got for the rest of the show is some groups of hitters who are improving in multiple underlying skills at once, which to me, I guess you could get excited about a hitter who's doing one thing way better. But usually if he's doing one thing way better and it's just been a month, I assume he's going to fall back to earth and be doing that thing a normal amount better. And then if that's all he's doing better this year, maybe it won't be that different of a season. Whereas on the other hand, if you have a hitter who is improving in three ways at once, I have to take notice of that. And so the list of hitters that we're going to start with today are guys who have improved their average exit velocity. So they're hitting the ball harder. That seems good. They have improved their swing rate, so they are chasing at fewer pitches outside the zone, making better swing decisions, and they've improved their in-zone contact percentage. So when they are swinging at the correct pitches, they're hitting them more. So making better decisions, making more contact, and hitting the ball harder. I mean, Ryan, it's pretty hard to get worse while you're doing those three things at once, right?
It is, and actually, but in some of these guys' cases, the results haven't been there yet, which I think is even the more interesting part. So, good list, and I think you nailed it. You and just fantasy baseball analysis in general too. You don't want to just look at one metric in a vacuum. So I like how you kind of set this up. Three kind of related but not overlapping too much metrics. If you're improving in all three, then good things are happening beneath the hood.
Yeah, so we won't be talking about any speed metrics today. You could look at, say, takeoff rate, stolen bases per stolen base opportunity is a good one to look at there if you're trying to work some of that in. We're going to be looking just at the plate. And as you mentioned, the results have not been there for all of these guys, including Yordan Alvarez, who, if you look at the surface, he's dropped his OPS from 959 to 670, yet his exit velocity's up, not by a lot. He's making slightly better swing decisions and still has an elite in-zone contact rate, slightly better even than last year. So when you look at these three stats, is that enough right there to say, you know what, Yordan Alvarez, totally fine. I'll buy low wherever I can?
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, with someone like Alvarez with the track record that's so stable, even if some of these indicators weren't quite there a month into the season, I would still be taking the track record over what we've seen in 1 month. But just because hitters can slump, even Yordan Alvarez can slump. But in Alvarez's case, like, yeah, he's actually improved in terms of the metrics that we're looking at with swing decisions and hitting the ball hard, and just the results haven't been there. It's a really low BABIP that's driving that 219 batting average. It's 10 barrels on 3 home runs, so the hard contact has been there. Zero concern over Mr. Yordan Alvarez. Just stay healthy. Just stay healthy.
Yep. I'm right there with you. How about the next guy on the list? And by the way, I've split these lists up by their ADP in the RotoWire Online Championship. So this list right here is all the guys who fit these 3 filters who were drafted in the top 200. We'll get to the sleepers later. Lawrence Butler was a very popular pick, rising up draft boards. People bought into the underlying skills. They bought into the 3.5 months worth of performance. And after a shaky first week or so, his numbers have really come around this year. The OPS is down from 807 to 760, but he's hitting 254, 5 homers, 5 steals, and he's up by 0.6 miles per hour in average exit velocity. He's making better swing decisions by 4%, cutting that O-swing rate, and his zone contact is a tiny bit improved, just enough to get him on here. So we like everything we're seeing from Lawrence Butler.
We do. And unlike Yordan Alvarez, who has the track record, Lawrence Butler, I call him the law dog. He does not have the track record of Yordan Alvarez. So one of the things I was openly curious about talking about on my podcast is what does Lawrence Butler look like in year 2 when the league has had, a chance to see him a couple times. The book is now out on someone like Lawrence Butler, who could be perceived as a downward regression candidate coming off of a really good season and only one really good season. And so far, Lawrence Butler, despite the slow early start, like you said, Eric, is answering those calls, right? Better swing decisions, harder contact. He's running. I know we don't have a speed metric on here, but he is running with the Athletics, 18% stolen base attempt rate with those 5 steals. So it looks like Lawrence Butler is staving off that regression just fine in the encore of last season's breakout.
All right, up next, we've got Adley Rutschman, whose numbers fell off in the second half last year. I think most people were tying that to a foul tip he took off his hand. His power was worse, but everything else was more or less fine, which makes it interesting to see him on this list. His surface stats aren't that great so far this year. He's only hitting 222, modest 4 homers, but the average exit velocity is back up by 1.7 miles per hour. His in-zone contact is marginally better, but really he's just refusing to ever swing at a pitch outside the zone. This was not a weakness for him before, but easily the biggest improvement there. Cut his ozone swing rate by 13%, all the way down to 17%. I mean, it's not going to stay at that low, I don't think, but we knew that Adley Rutschman has a very good eye for the zone, certainly showing that again this year.
Yeah, and this type of profile, I struggle with a little bit, Eric. Like, so if you're in an OBP league, sure, the plate patience, the walk rate for Adley Rutschman is fantastic. Like in Tout Wars, I actually have Adley Rutschman in that OBP league. In 5x5, like we're in Roto, where like batting average is a category. I kind of don't like the approach that much because you need to be able to put bat on ball in order to have that high batting average and make that work. And Adley Rutschman is a very selective hitter. I would argue almost, again, Adley Rutschman doesn't play 5x5 Roto, so he doesn't care. And the approach works in real life. But I think in your typical kind of traditional batting average leagues, I'd love to see a more aggressive Adley Rutschman. Like, yes, he doesn't swing on anything out of the zone. He doesn't swing that much just in general. And I think that hurts Adley's batting average league 5x5 value quite a bit. And I think will continue to, because according to kind of everything we're looking at here, not only has Adley Rutschman not changed from that approach, he's actually leaning into it more.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So not all of these are strictly positive. I think about how Rutschman's teammate Gunnar Henderson a couple years ago
Yep.
He seemed to deliberately make his plate discipline worse. And right as he did that, he broke out. So sometimes this is what happens. You get too selective, and maybe you need a little bit more aggression, and that unlocks more power, even if you strike out a little bit more and walk a little bit less.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's move on to the next guy here, Marcell Ozuna, who, well, he's pretty much having the same season as always. The OPS 915. That's exactly halfway between his 905 and 925 the last 2 years, hitting 283 with 5 homers. And we see that he's got a tiny improvement in his exit velocity, but a pretty sizable improvement in his chase rate and in his ability to make contact in the zone. So encouraged across the board here by Marcell Ozuna.
Encouraged across the board, like kind of similar with Yordan Alvarez. It doesn't matter to me too much what these metrics look like for someone like Ozuna, who's just been so solid over the last few seasons. But definitely a great sign. Like, I mean, Marcell Ozuna already had very good exit velocity at 92.1 last year. To improve upon that even more while improving these other things are good. Ozuna gave us a little scare. Remember, I forget, a couple weeks ago, did not make a road trip with the team, had some imaging, but he looks to be okay and recently has been hitting well. So yeah, good news for Marcell Ozuna.
Yeah, certainly some age-related worries with him. I mean, we've
True.
seen some DHs keep it up till right around 40, but, he's old enough that any sort of minor scare at age 34 could be worse than it is for other players. And it, could just see his performance decrease, and we are not seeing that. In a similar vein, Salvador Perez, somebody who is getting older, and you could look at his slow start to the season in his surface stats and say, uh-oh, this might be the beginning of the end. This is what it would look like when Sal Perez starts to get old. But I'm seeing that he is hitting it a tiny bit harder. I mean, 0.2 miles per hour. That's basically just tied. But he is chasing less, and he's making more contact in the zone. He did, I see, leave with hip soreness just today. So maybe there is something to worry about here. But assuming that that's not a problem, I see Salvador Perez's inclusion here, and I'm pretty encouraged.
Yeah, Salvador Perez could like lose a finger, an appendage, and still be in the lineup the next day. So
yeah,
that's just the way he is. So unless I actually did not know that about him on as we record on Thursday, but that's the life of a catcher. We actually talked about Salvador Perez a little bit on our Bub and the Bloom podcast. We did a home run to barrel rate kind of comparison on this Tuesday show this week, and Salvador Perez popped on that Bloom board because he has 2 home runs to 14 barrels. In general, you take kind of the number of barrels. That a barrel is right. How often are you hitting? Are you barreling it up? Are you making extremely hard contact at the best line drive fly ball? Typically, like on average, you just divide your barrels by 2, maybe add a couple for home runs, and that's where you kind of should be at. So like for 14 barrels, I would expect Salvador Perez to have like 8 home runs and only has 2. So that's just another kind of data point indicator for Perez not to worry really at all about the slow start. The hard contact not only is there, it's there more often than it has been in the past. So I think Sal Perez is a fine buy low target, especially when you look at the batting average as well. So things are looking good despite the slow start on the surface for Sal Perez.
All right, moving from a couple old guys to someone who is just 21, Junior Caminero shows up on this list. He's added the highest amount of exit velocity of anyone in this group, 3.7 miles per hour, up to 93.4 on average. That's second to only Yordan Alvarez among these guys that we're talking about in this section. Caminero also has cut a little bit from his O-swing percentage, and he has raised his zone contact rate by more than anyone else on the list, up to 88.5%. For those curious, the league average on in-zone contact this year is 85.3. So he's gone from a few ticks below average to a few ticks above average, while hitting it harder. This looks like a 21-year-old who we all thought was pretty good at hitting, who continues to get better at hitting. This is very encouraging, is it not?
Absolutely, it is. And that's a nice. I'm glad you point out kind of the MLB league average, because that is the beauty of these charts, these boards, is because it is color coded. You don't really even need to know what average is. If it's a shade of green, a light shade of green, like we're looking at with Junior Caminero in terms of his in zone contact, that's slightly better than average. So, very impressive for Junior Caminero, who did not have a ton of major league experience entering the season. The only blemish I would say on Caminero's profile isn't really his fault. It's 6 home runs, it's 13 RBI. Like, come on, Rays, let's get on base let's get on base for our guy, for Caminero, and let him do his thing. But only having 13 RBI is rough, but that's a pretty noisy thing. So Junior Caminero, all systems go, especially like you said, you look at that uptick in exit velocity. He is mashing the ball right now.
All right, we're not going to go in depth on every single player on these lists because we've got 4 little charts to look at. I'm going to mention that I'm skipping over Cal Raleigh, but encouraged to see him there. I do want to talk about Josh Naylor because he has one of the biggest improvements in zone contact at 4.5%, up to 91.2, while also having one of the bigger improvements in chase rate. He's now at 28.2%, improving by just shy of 4 points, and his exit velocity is up. So Josh Naylor, pretty notable in all 3 sections here, and he switched teams, which might be a variable to take into account here. Sometimes guys will make a slight approach change. Pretty encouraged by what we're seeing from Josh Naylor.
Very encouraged. An already really good plate approach is getting even better, and great sign that he's not pressing too much on a new team, which I slightly worry about whenever someone changes it up. But Naylor's look very good so far.
Yeah, and it really is that plate approach over everything. It looks like with a walk that he took today, he now has more walks than strikeouts. So
that is rare.
Pretty encouraging.
That is rare.
I mean, we did mention how extreme good plate discipline with Adley Rutschman, not always a good thing, but I think we've seen enough from Josh Naylor and his other skills that I don't think we're complaining about that, right?
Agreed. And I think the other big thing too is Josh Naylor, who can provide some value on the base paths. He is running with his new team as well, so already has the 4 steals. He's 4 for 6 so far this season. So that's another good sign that you're going to get some stolen base, maybe even double-digit bags again from Josh Naylor this season.
Yeah, that would be something. I will skip over Brian Reynolds, but congrats to him for showing up here because I want to get to Alex Bregman, who is one of the most impressive improvers here. Has an elite O swing rate, just under 17%. He was already very good in that category, but he dropped it by over 5%. He also has the second biggest improvement in exit velocity among this group, up by 3.4 miles per hour to 92.5. And he is up slightly in his zone contact rate, was already elite in that at 92.5, and now he's at 93.4. So Alex Bregman, somebody we thought would enjoy moving to Boston because of the park. Well, it turns out he'd probably be having a very good season wherever he was hitting right now, right?
Exactly. Which this is like an interesting one. And these kind of things come out of nowhere. Like when at least for me, tell me if you disagree or had a different outlook on Alex Bregman. Like, I just think this is someone who you just kind of plug into third base and you just let him. It's like a safe pick, not the highest ceiling, but a great floor. And sometimes you just kind of want to say luck into an older breakout like this, but that looks to be what's happening with Alex Bregman. I did not expect this.
Yeah, weirdly, he's actually striking out more than he has since his rookie season, but still 19% strikeout rate is pretty good. But he's somebody who maybe had some extra contact to give if he wanted to start swinging for the fences more and add, again, over 3 miles per hour to his average exit velocity. It's a lot easier to do that when you're striking out 11, 12, 13% consistently. You could say, actually, fine, I'll add 5 points to my strikeout rate if I'll add 3 points to my average exit velocity. That's a trade-off you can make when you have excess contact to play with.
Yep, absolutely.
Should we talk about any of these last 4 names on this list? JT Realmuto, Andres Jimenez, Nick Castellanos, and Luis Arias. Any of those guys stand out to you before we move on to the guys who were drafted later in the RotoWire Online Championship?
Not really. I mean, I think this quick call I'd have is Andres Gimenez. So it has shown the uptick in exit velocity, but it's still pretty bad. 87.9 is red on the sheet there. And a lot of that, remember, like Andres Gimenez, I think the first week or two of the season went on like a home run binge hitting cleanup, and that was just weird.
Yeah.
And that is no longer happening. Andres Gimenez is still fine, but I'm not expecting some kind of major power breakout from him.
Yeah, improved, but still red in exit velocity, improved, but still pink in O swing rate. I think we don't need to get too carried away here. So let's move on to players who were drafted outside the top 200 in the RotoWire Online Championship and who fit these same three filters we're looking at. They have improved their average exit velocity, they have improved their chase rate or O swing percentage, and they have improved their ability to make contact on pitches in the zone. Well, should we take this first guy here? It's a little bit of a surprise to see Ceddanne Rafaela. I don't think I've heard too many good noises about him this year, but his average exit velocity is up by a pretty substantial amount, up by 3.3 miles per hour. His O swing is improved, but still terrible. His zone contact rate is improved, but still terrible, which I will show you in a second when I put the colors on that one. Anything to make of this?
Not too much. Just that Rafaela has, I don't know. This is one like I don't know if I believe in the early like improvement in strikeout rate from Ceddanne Rafaela. So while he's only hitting 213, it's been a very low BABIP. I don't think Ceddanne Rafaela holds a 17% strikeout rate, given what you're showing here on this sheet with the chase and the lack of in zone contact. So kind of a bummer. Like Rafaela has only 2 home runs on 10 barrels. So you would, from that aspect, you would think he'd be doing a little bit better. I just don't think this early skill surge is built on much from a plate discipline standpoint. He is 7 for 7 on stolen base attempts. So that's really good. Boston is running Rafaela, and he is as long as he's successful, I think that will continue. But in terms of the batting average, I still think this is like a 230, 240 type bat with okay power.
Yeah, that seems about right. And now we have some pretty colors as well to show that. The next guy on the list here, Jackson Holliday. There was a question about him earlier in the show, wondering about him versus Jason Dominguez or Matt Shaw. Seeing Jackson Holliday on this list, admittedly, it's only a very small increase in exit velocity, but a pretty notable increase in zone contact rate. I should say more than pretty notable. He was the biggest mover here by quite some amount. He was down well below average, and now he's at 90.4%. So Jackson Holliday, who now knows how to get his bat on the ball, an encouraging start for him for sure, right?
An encouraging start. You certainly don't see that Jackson Holliday is pressing or anything like that with the expectations placed on him. Would like to see. I mean, would like to see a mass improvement in all three, sure. But the hard contact hasn't been there yet for Jackson Holliday. Just 2 home runs on those 3 barrels, and kind of not playing every day against lefties either. So while yes, it's nice to see someone this young, I think the power will come eventually for Jackson Holliday. It's nice to see the plate discipline improve like this in his second prolonged go around in the majors. I still think from like a 2025 breakout standpoint, I'm not seeing it from Jackson Holliday quite yet until he starts making harder contact.
All right, fair enough. But if you're looking for a reason why, say, his strikeout rate has dropped from 33% to 24%, look, there it is right there. He can actually hit pitches that he swings at in the zone now. That matters. So a real growth, even if, like you said, he's not a superstar yet. How about his teammate, Cedric Mullins, with a surprising late career, mid-career, not a breakout, but a return to previous levels? This is not something that I heard anybody calling for heading into the season, but Cedric Mullins, how's he doing it? Well, he's hitting the ball harder by 2.7 miles per hour. He has cut his chase rate by over 6%, and his in-zone contact rate is up a little bit as well. It makes it a lot easier to buy into his hot start, right?
It's a lot easier to buy into Mullins' hot start. I almost think too, this is some, I don't want to say like a trap you can fall in just by looking at current year versus last season. I almost think this is Cedric Mullins just kind of going back to the Cedric Mullins that he is. I think 2024 is more of just a down season, and Mullins is just kind of coming back to his normal level that we're seeing this season. Now, granted, I am a little bit more of a Mullins fan than most folks out there, but I've certainly felt validated by the early start with Mullins. I don't think it's 5 home runs on 5 barrels. 6 home runs on 6 barrels for Cedric Mullins. So I don't think we're seeing like some kind of mid-20s home run power breakout. Mullins is at 16, 15, and 18 over the last 3 seasons. I see him kind of settling there, but doing that with a good number of steals and playing most of the time and probably hitting for a decent batting average, certainly above the 233, 234 level that Mullins has hit over the last 2 seasons.
All right, up next on this list, Maikel Garcia. It's interesting to see him on here because I view Maikel Garcia as somebody who we liked his underlying numbers already. It was just turning them into performance that was the problem. He had a 69 WRC plus last year, but this year he's hitting the ball 3 miles per hour harder on average, and he's slightly improved his chase rate and slightly improved his in-zone contact rate, both of which were already quite good to begin with, as I mentioned. So is this enough? Is Maikel Garcia breaking through? What's going on here?
And I think stole 3 bases today on Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
Well.
Wow.
So he is off and running, green light with Kansas City, which is basically what you want. I mean, which is what you rostered Maikel Garcia for. It's that and the position flexibility, eligibility that Garcia provides. It's 4 barrels so far, 2 homers. Like I don't think while it's interesting to see the uptick in exit velocity for Maikel Garcia, he still hits the ball. It doesn't hit too many fly balls. He's actually sporting a career high 34% fly ball rate, which is still kind of below average. But I think, he may get 10 home runs, Garcia might, which I think you take. It was only 7 home runs last season for Maikel Garcia over 626 plate appearances. So maybe he pops 10 home runs, but I think the biggest thing is the running game with Kansas City. He's running, stole 3 more today. He's already at 7 on the season. I think he can approach 30 stolen bases again, which again is what you rostered Maikel Garcia for.
Yeah, and he's up to a 353 OBP on the season, which is going to make it a lot easier for him to steal those bases than when he had a 281 OBP last year.
And stay in the lineup, because that's also a potential risk for Maikel Garcia. He's from a pure hitter standpoint, any kind of prolonged slump, you might not see it. So that's a good call out. It's nice to see the OBP come back up there.
All right. Should we skip over Nolan Arenado? Good to see him on here, but it's barely meeting the threshold in all 3 skills. How about Ryan Jeffers, though? He's added over 3 ticks to his average exit velocity, and he has easily the biggest improvement in his O-swing percentage. Cut that by over 11.5 points, down to 22.2%. He also is very slightly improving his zone contact, but mostly just not chasing. Ryan Jeffers has been vaguely interesting for a few years now. Is this enough to move the needle on him?
A little bit, yeah. Certainly in 2 catcher leagues, and Ryan Jeffers is making his. I would argue he probably shouldn't have been splitting too many plate appearances with Christian Vasquez in Minnesota, but he is now starting to become the primary catcher in Minnesota. We saw this from Ryan Jeffers last year. If you recall, like the first half for Ryan Jeffers last year, he was a man on a mission, and then and then wasn't. He left the mission, I guess. So that's another one. Like we could have probably had this board up this time last season, and Ryan Jeffers is probably on this list. But it's just a reminder how long of a season this can be, and things can change. But great start so far for Ryan Jeffers in 2 catcher leagues. You absolutely think he's rosterable, and you're going there with Ryan Jeffers.
Gleyber Torres next on the list. Not a very exciting player at this point in his career, but the exit velocity is up a little bit. It's really he's cutting his chase rate by 3.6 points and improving his zone contact rate by 3.4. 2 pretty notable changes there. Do we need to say much on Gleyber Torres other than this is just keeping him viable?
Keeping him viable outside of I believe it was an oblique injury for Gleyber Torres early this season. He's running quite a bit with Detroit, which is we'll take that. Already has 4 steals. He's 4 for 4. Playing time's obviously going to be there and even hitting near the top of the lineup. So Gleyber Torres is actually pretty interesting to me, just because I thought Gleyber Torres was one of the more stable investments this time last season heading into 2024, and just completely tanked. And so I wanted to see what the rebound would look like. And so far so good for Gleyber.
Yeah, he's cut his strikeout rate from over 20% to under 10%, and you could see some underlying skill improvements that are not to that same extent, but they're certainly moving in the right direction. So there's something here. I'm going to skip over TJ Friedel and Rhys Hoskins. Should we linger on Nolan Jones at all? I mean, this to me mostly is Nolan Jones is healthy again, but the average exit velocity up just shy of 7 miles per hour, while he's also chasing less and making more contact in the zone. The results haven't been there, but again, at least maybe this hints at better health.
Interesting. I did not. I just kind of looked at Nolan Jones and dismiss him because he's only hitting 171 with 1 homer and 2 steals.
It's not good.
That is not good at all. But then you look at Nolan Jones here, and I'm actually intrigued, at least in weeks where Cleveland is facing a bunch of right-handed pitchers. I think Nolan Jones is, for as faint of a compliment as this could be, I'm going to go with, I think Nolan Jones could be a viable streamer in deep leagues now. So, it's not the most ringing endorsement, but there we have it.
Yeah, fair enough. I said we'd skip over Rhys Hoskins, but we got questions here. Hoskins or Berger? I assume that's Jake Berger. Hoskins is improving here compared to last year, his first year back from missing that full season with a ACL tear. We've got an improvement of almost 2 miles per hour in average exit velocity. He's chasing less by over 3 points, making a tiny bit more contact in the zone. Does that take him above Jake Berger at all?
Not for me, though. I am a noted Jake Berger supporter. But no, very, very good sign for Rhys Hoskins. Like you said, I don't want to say we wash away last season, because it was a full season for Rhys Hoskins, but it was his first full season back after a pretty gruesome injury. So nice to see Rhys Hoskins back. I think he's absolutely a pretty good power bat with a batting average that's not going to hurt you in a lot of leagues that plays in corner infield. I just think Jake Berger has the ceiling to hit 35, 40 home runs with a good batting average. I don't think Rhys Hoskins quite has that, but Rhys Hoskins can still be quite serviceable, as he has been.
All right. Well, a first baseman who I'd take over both of those guys already, and I assume many others would as well. Tyler Soderstrom. How far are we pushing Tyler Soderstrom up our rest of season rankings? We're seeing excellent surface numbers, like 9 homers at 284 batting average, 909 OPS. And hey, compared to last year, the exit velocity is up by 0.7 miles per hour on average. The chase rate is down by almost 3 points, and the zone contact rate has gone from a slightly below average 84% to a well above average 90.7. Really encouraged by Tyler Soderstrom already, and this looks like, hey, it looks good under the hood as well.
Absolutely. I actually had Tyler Soderstrom's baseball forecaster box blurb, whatever we want to call it, entering the season. I saw enough, so I put an upside. We do these kind of upside or downside projections if things go well or don't go well. But for Soderstrom, I put an upside of 30 plus home runs on him in the baseball forecaster entering the season. I just didn't. So it's nice to see the power improve by that much. Still, I didn't see the batting average. I thought we projected him to hit 224 in the book, and I did not see the plate discipline improving like this so quickly. So that has been an awesome improvement for Tyler Soderstrom. And I mean, just like kind of a lot of the other players we've talked about today, to be able to hit the ball harder while also improving your swing decisions and then cutting down, in Soderstrom's case, cutting the K rate down to 21%. That's absolutely going to play. And to kind of tie it back to Dave's question earlier about Hoskins or Berger, I would agree with you, Eric. Tyler Soderstrom is well above those two rest of season.
All right. So we're liking Tyler Soderstrom just as much, if not more, after seeing this. I am going to skip most of the remaining guys on here. I do real quick want to touch on two of them, though. Gavin Lux, somebody I was interested in heading into the year after he decided to swing harder late last year and now moved to Cincinnati. Well, he's up in exit velocity, way down in chase rate, and up a little bit in in-zone contact rate. You liking what you're seeing here? Are you a Gavin Lux guy?
Liking what I'm seeing. I think Gavin Lux just needed to get out of LA. Not because it's LA's fault or what they did with him, but it's just one of those, every now and then you need a change of scenery. And I think Gavin Lux needed that. Still stayed in a great park. Obviously not the lineup that the Dodgers have in Cincinnati, but yeah, Gavin Lux is absolutely taking advantage of this opportunity, and it's good to see him do that, because if we think back a few years ago, this was one of the premier prospects in baseball, and you just never know. Sometimes it can take years. It's the old Jurickson Profar type deal for prospects to kind of realize their potential. It looks like Gavin Lux is inching closer. I'm not going to say he has arrived and broken out, but very good start for him.
Well, we hope he doesn't follow the whole Jurickson Profar path.
Yeah, that's true.
Take him out of your 2029 lineups, but other than that, yes. I'll read you most of the rest of the remaining names on this list. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Josh Smith, Jake Fraley, Lamont Wade Jr., Jake Myers, Dylan Dingler, but then the guy I wanted to touch on here, Geraldo Perdomo. He's making big improvements across the board, and we're seeing it in his surface stats, but his exit velocity is up just over 2 miles per hour. His chase rate, which was already excellent, is down nearly 3 ticks, and his zone contact rate, which was already excellent, is up 1.5 ticks as well. Is Geraldo Perdomo actually good?
I would say he's serviceable, and just another home run today, so that's Perdomo's 5th home run. I just think you do need to look at the track record here. Perdomo always has had a pretty good plate approach, so there's that nice uptick in power so far, but I don't see it going above 15 home runs for Geraldo Perdomo. So a nice start to the season, but I think Geraldo Perdomo is mostly a middle infield type who's going to play every day and be serviceable. I'm not going all out. It's almost like you're making too much, as weird as this sounds, a 96% in zone contact. It's are you just swinging to make contact and not hitting it hard? And while Perdomo has hit the ball harder a little bit this season, exit velo is still pretty low. So I don't know, a decent batting average, 15 home runs type of deal, which can play in deeper leagues.
And I was just going to move on, but there was a quick question here on Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Any thoughts on him? I mean, it's good to see his skills improvements here. That probably keeps him with a firmer grip on an everyday playing time in Pittsburgh, which means he'll steal you bases and give you an okay batting average, and that's it, right?
Yep. Nope, you nailed it. I think this is IKF's hitting just good enough to stay in the lineup, and that is important in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh, one of the early season storylines for that I always kind of look at is how aggressive is an entire team at stealing bases, a team-wide approach. Pittsburgh's been one of the most aggressive teams out there, and IKF has been a beneficiary of that. So as long as IKF can stay in the lineup, you're not going to get much else. Decent batting average, not much power, but you're going to get steals from someone who qualifies pretty much everywhere. So yeah, good call out, deeper league. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa.
All right, and now let's take things to a different level. Over the last few minutes of today's show, we have bat tracking data that we did not have before, and specifically, we have multiple years of bat tracking data, so we can actually compare this year's bat speed to last year's bat speed, which to me matters a whole lot more than just raw bat speed. Otherwise, Giancarlo Stanton would be the best hitter in baseball. Luis Arias would be the worst. We know that's not true, but we also know if a guy is getting better in that area while not having negative effects elsewhere, that probably means something. And so what I've done here is look at just 2 underlying scales, bat speed and squared up percentage, which is a new stat that StatCast introduced as part of these bat tracking stats. A swing that is at least 80% squared up, which is basically gets 80% of the possible exit velocity you could have based on the speed of your swing and the speed of the speed of the pitch. Yep. Tongue twistering myself there, but I think we got it. Basically, did you hit it clean? So what we're looking at here is hitters who are swinging harder this year and not only are they not hitting it less clean, they're actually hitting it cleaner while hitting harder. I actually left the threshold here as adding at least a full mile per hour to their bat speed. And since we don't have a ton of time, I'll just read out the full list of about 11 names, and we'll talk about a few who seem to stand out. The names of players who are up by at least a mile per hour in bat speed while also squaring up the ball more among players who were picked in the top 300 in the RotoWire Online Championship. We've got Pete Alonso, Will Smith, Pete Crow Armstrong, Ezekiel Tovar, Bryce Terang, Anthony Volpe, Andres Jimenez, Michael Garcia, again, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Trevor Story, and Alejandro Kirk. So, who does your eye go to first in this list?
So just in general, it goes to two guys on this list who are doing this, but also at least holding a strikeout rate that they held from last year, because I think it is, I don't want to say easy, but if someone's swinging harder, squaring it up more often, but striking out more, that can be a wash or just a negative. So two names that stick out at me: one, Pete Alonso, the top of the list, just doing this while greatly improving upon his strikeout rate. It has been an extremely impressive start for Pete Alonso. Skills taking a major step forward there. The other one, and I was off of this guy completely entering draft season. I don't know if you were, Eric, but Bryce Terang. I just thought this was like your prototypical rabbit. He stole 50 bags last year, but like, what else are you doing outside of really good defense, which outside of playing time we don't really care about for fantasy? But Bryce Terang swinging a lot harder, but only striking out 20% of the time. I think that's the key. You have to still kind of keep that pretty good plate approach if you're going to swing harder. Bryce Terang already has 9 barrels this season to 3 home runs. He's running like he normally does. This is impressive. If Bryce Terang can inch toward like 15, 20 home runs, he plays every single day, and that stolen base total gets up to like 30, 40 again, I think this is going to be somebody who I look back at draft season and say, man, Bloomfield, you were wrong on this guy. You're taking the L.
Yeah, I would say I wasn't totally out on Terang. I just thought he was priced in the wrong tier, though, which is effectively the same thing as being totally out. I just thought, can't you get that from Andres Jimenez or Bryson Stott 30 picks later or whatever it was? And, well, maybe, but could you get this? I think, did we maybe all miss the fact that Bryce Terang is in his age 25 season, and actually he could become stronger, which appears to be what happened here. A guy who is also still very young and shows up on this list, PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, in his age 23 season. He's swinging a faster bat by just 1 mile per hour, but he's also hitting it much cleaner, squaring it up at 27.2% of the time this year. And hey, his strikeout rate is down a little bit as well, down to 21.5%. Isn't this somebody who's supposed to have contact problems? Are we buying into this first month plus from PCA?
Yeah, probably should have labeled PCA as well in terms of guys who have improved their K rate while also doing this. For PCA to be able to do this, and we kind of saw this a little bit towards the end of last season. Crow Armstrong, a little bit of a late season power boost. Yes, extremely impressive for PCA to do this as a young player and improve the strikeout rate. That's and elite defense. So it's all looking good for PCA, who's like already entering NL MVP talk, which again, it's May 1st, but he has deserved the kudos so far. It's been a pretty good season for PCA so far.
Yeah, we'll have to see just how much the plate discipline gains stick around. But hey, if you're swinging the bat this hard and getting the bat to the ball, that's, the core thing that you're trying to do in baseball. So good start there. Let's move on to the same list, but guys who were drafted outside the top 300 or not at all. It's a pretty large list of names. I'll throw out all of them at you, and then you can tell me some who stand out to you. We've got Bo Naylor, Jacob Young, Sal Frelick, Ben Rice. He might be one that stands out. Brett Beatty, Jordan Beck, Jesse Winker, Jorge Polanco, Geraldo Perdomo again, Griffin Conine out for the year, unfortunately, Brian Rocchio, Gavin Sheets, Cameron Meisner, Eric Wagaman, Trent Grisham, Carson Kelly, Graham Polly, Angel Martinez, and Santiago Espinal. So these are a whole bunch of guys who have added at least 1 mile per hour to their average bat speed while also squaring up the ball more this year. Any of those guys stand out beyond Ben Rice? I think we probably should start with Ben Rice before I ask you about the rest of them. But if you were wondering whether or not to be into Ben Rice, he's swinging the ball way harder and getting that bat to the ball. That's a pretty good start.
And doing it in a home park that makes things very conducive for hard contact to turn, not even hard contact to turn into home runs for a lefty like Ben Rice. And also, at least treading water with the K rate. And that, again, that's super important. So very nice from Mr. Rice so far. I'm going to throw out in honor of my good friend and co-host, Casey Bubba on the Bubba and the Bloom podcast. I'm going to go catchers here. I'm going to go Bo Naylor, who's actually at the top of this list, but it's just ordered by ADP. So, at a 304 ADP, Bo Naylor is one who we were both super high on, Bubba and I, entering last season, just because of the skills that he showed in 2023 and the youth, and went complete belly up in 2024. But so it's nice to see Bo Naylor on here, swinging harder, squaring it up a little bit more. But the biggest thing is the strikeout rate. The plate discipline has improved a ton. A strikeout rate from 31% last year down to 20% so far this season. I think even better, it's not shown through to the results for Bo Naylor. So he's hitting 191 with 4 homers and 1 steal, but that does not reflect the harder contact and the more frequent contact so far. It's a 184 BABIP for Bo Naylor. So all that to say that's a lot of words about a catcher hitting 191 with 4 home runs, but I think Bo Naylor is a pretty good either buy low or pick up even in 2 catcher leagues that you could go for, because I think the skills are there.
Yeah, I could see it. Anybody else stand out here? I could have said Brett Beatty, but he's been sent down. I do like that he's made some real improvements on both of those. Jordan Beck, at least with the bat speed way up this year. Problem is it was the contact ability we were concerned about, and that's improved, but just barely. We got Jorge Polanco is off to an outstanding start. Uncle Ted says he looks like the MVP. I suppose he does. If you look at his surface stats, and he's swinging harder and making much cleaner contact. Any of those guys stand out?
Jorge Polanco actually has the best improvement of skills by looking at, I look at strikeout rate and barrel rate as kind of my go-tos for hitters from last season to this season. In terms of improvement from last year to this year in strikeout rate, how often you're hitting the ball, and barrel rate, how often you're hitting it hard, Jorge Polanco is the number 1 most improved hitter from 2024 to 2025. We don't know when Jorge Polanco will get hurt. Unfortunately, it probably will happen at some point, but this is somebody who hit, I believe, 30 home runs back in 2021, 33 home runs, back in 2021. And so this is still just 32 years old. He's not, super old. I think this is something that Jorge Polanco can at least somewhat sustain for as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I think technically he isn't healthy now, right? He's sitting against lefties because he can only hit from one side right now. So he's doing this all while he's even
fair point,
hurt, which makes it even more impressive. So
touche.
Good start to the year for Jorge Polanco. We'll see where that goes. But that's going to do it for our look at all of these skill improvers. But I want to ask the overall question here, Ryan. Which level do you find more useful? If you're digging down, below the surface stats, we even went below the strikeout rate and barrel rate, which is very useful, I think, as the first level to go down.
Yep.
When you're digging below that, do you think we gained more from what we looked at first, which was, again, exit velocity, chase rate, and in-zone contact rate? Do you prefer looking at that level, or do you prefer some of this new stuff we have now, the bat tracking stuff, where you can just say, I don't even care how hard he hits it. I want to see how hard the bat is moving in his hands. Which level do you find to be more useful?
I find the first level to be a little bit more useful just because it paints a more complete picture of the player. And I think bat speed and squared up, like I still think we are those metrics are in their infancy, where like I almost wonder, given that like the oblique injury is kind of the new elbow injury for pitchers with higher velocity. It's like, do you want your hitters increasing their bat speed this much for some of these guys? Long term, to your core, to your oblique. I'm not a doctor. I'm just wondering kind of this out loud. Is this something where you're taxing your body that much more? Is it like a pitcher who's now throwing 4 miles an hour faster and then blows out their elbow, halfway through the season? I don't know. I'm not kind of making that conclusion. It's just something I wonder with new stats like this. So I think what we had up first, the ability to hit the ball hard with exit velocity, the ability to make good choices at the plate with O swing, and the ability to make contact in the zone. If you can have someone who improves kind of in all three phases, like those first group of players we talked about, I think that's something you can totally walk away from even 1 month into the season and kind of glean good information from that. So.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. That's why we spent most of our time on that first level. So be encouraged by all those players, or at least most of them. Thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out in the chat. Thank you, Ryan, for your time here. Why don't you remind everyone where they can find your podcast, your Patreon, etc.?
Yeah, we are the Bubba and the Bloom podcast that my partner in crime, Casey Bubba, host. We do a Fab preview that runs every Friday, and then we do a Bloom Boards theme episode that runs every Wednesday, and we're live on YouTube Tuesdays and Thursday nights for those shows. All my written work is over at Baseball HQ as well. And great to hang with you, Eric. I know we were able to do so at First Pitch Arizona this past fall. Hope we can do that again this year. But yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, for sure. Looking forward to it. And thank you for raising my spreadsheet game. Cannot recommend your podcast highly enough to anybody who likes colorful spreadsheets about baseball players. It's the best thing around. That's going to do it for today's show. Clay and Todd will be back tomorrow on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by Vivid Seats.